The sky above Houston turned purple at exactly noon. No clouds, no storm warning, just a sudden shift from blue to deep violet that made everyone stop and look up. Captain James Reed was in the middle of his morning jog when it happened. He stopped, breathing hard, and squinted at the strange color spreading across the sky. His phone buzzed, then buzzed again and again. Reed pulled it out and saw 27 messages, all marked urgent. The top one was from Space Command. REPORTIMNEDIAHELY. First contact, co-environment. By the time Reed arrived at the command center, the news was everywhere. A massive ship, unlike anything humans had built, hovered silently above Earth's atmosphere. It had appeared without warning, without any approach detected on radar or deep space monitoring. It's just sitting there, General Brooks said, pointing at the main screen. The ship looked like a dark star with 7 points, each extending miles into space. No radio contact, no signals of any kind. Reed stared at the image. After 20 years in space exploration, he had always believed this day would come. He just hadn't expected it in his lifetime. "Why am I here?" Reed asked. Brooks handed him a tablet. "Because 10 minutes ago, they asked for you by name." Reed looked down at the screen. A simple message in perfect English. "Captain James Reed of ECS Defiant. We who you speak with you." 3 hours later, Reed was suited up and boarding a shuttle to the International Space Station. From there, he would transfer to his own ship, the Defiant, which was being prepped for an unprecedented meeting in Earth orbit. "This is insane," Dr. Anna Miller said as she checked Reed's suit connections. As the Defiant's chief engineer, she had been pulled from her sister's wedding to join the mission. "We don't know who they are, what they want, or why they asked for you specifically." "That makes 2 of us," Reed said, trying to sound calmer than he felt. The Defiant was Earth's newest spacecraft, designed for long-duration missions to Mars. It wasn't built for first contact, but it was the best humanity had. As Reed settled into the captain's chair, he looked at his hastily assembled crew. Miller, his trusted engineer, Dr. Luis Ortega, the xenobiologist who had written theoretical papers about alien life, and 5 others chosen for their expertise and cool heads. "Approaching designated coordinates," the pilot announced. Through the view screen, Reed could see the alien ship. It was even more impressive up close. A perfect 7-pointed star made of a material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No visible engines, no windows, nothing that suggested how it moved or who might be inside. "They're sending a transmission," Communications Officer Park said. The view screen shifted, and Reed found himself looking at a being unlike anything he had imagined. It had a vaguely humanoid shape, but its skin shifted colors like oil on water. Its eyes, at least, Reed assumed they were eyes, were vertical slits that glowed with an inner light. "I am Nexus, voice of the Voidwalkers," it said in perfect English with no hint of an accent. "We have observed your species for 417 of your years. Today marks your formal introduction to the galactic community." Reed took a deep breath. "We are honored to make your acquaintance. I'm Captain James Reed, representing Earth." The being made a gesture that might have been a nod. "We know who you are, James Reed. Your species stands at a crossroads. 57 civilizations currently participate in our federation. Each earned their place through demonstration of worthiness." "And how does a species demonstrate worthiness?" Reed asked, feeling a chill run down his spine. "Through challenge." The alien's colors darkened. "Humans must complete a task that will test your limits. Success brings membership and protection. Failure means quarantine for 100 years. Miller whispered from behind Reed. "I don't like where this is going." Reed kept his face neutral. "What is this challenge?" "Create a stable wormhole bridge capable of transporting matter between Earth and your moon. You have 5 of your Earth years to complete this task." The crew exchanged glances. Creating a stable wormhole was theoretical at best. No human had ever come close to making one work in a lab, let alone at planetary scale. That's impossible, Miller blurted out. The energy requirements alone mold. Other species completed this task. Nexus interrupted. The fastest took 52 years. Most required over a century. Its colors shifted to a deep blue. If humans succeed in 5 years, it will be unprecedented. Reed leaned forward. And if we refuse the challenge? Then quarantine begins immediately. No space travel beyond your orbit for 100 years. No further contact with other civilizations. The implications were clear. Humanity's expansion to Mars, the outer planets, and beyond would be halted. A century of isolation while the rest of the galaxy moved forward without them. We need time to discuss this, Reed said carefully. You have 24 hours to accept the challenge. We will provide basic theoretical frameworks to begin your work. The test is not merely of intelligence, but of determination. The aliens' colors brightened. Many believe your species will fail. They have placed significant wagers on this outcome. After the transmission ended, the crew sat in shocked silence. They're testing us, Ortega said finally, like lab rats. Miller was already reviewing the theoretical data the aliens had transmitted. This is beyond advanced physics. It's like giving Stone Age humans the blueprints for a nuclear reactor. Can it be done? Reed asked her directly. Miller ran her hands through her short hair. In 5 years? No, it's impossible. Reed stood up and looked at each crew member. I need to know right now if any of you want to refuse this challenge and doom humanity to a century of house arrest. Park asked, what choice do we have? Reed turned to the view screen, staring at the alien ship that had changed everything in a single day. They've been watching us for over 400 years. They chose this moment for a reason. They chose us for a reason. So we're doing this, Miller asked. Reed nodded slowly. They called it impossible, but humans have a long history of turning impossible into reality. Within days, the news had spread worldwide. Initial panic gave way to determination as governments set aside conflicts to focus on the impossible project, as people were calling it. The greatest scientific minds on Earth were being gathered. Unlimited funding was approved by a United Nations. 1 month after first contact, Reed stood in a newly constructed facility in Geneva, watching thousands of engineers and scientists at work. The Voidwalkers had provided a small observation team that watched silently from a designated area. They're enjoying this, Miller said, now appointed as chief scientist of the project. They know we can't do it. Reed looked at the alien observers, their colors shifting in patterns he couldn't interpret. Maybe, he said, or maybe they'll be the first to learn what happens when you challenge humanity to do the impossible. Miller smiled for the first time since the project began. I almost feel sorry for them. 1 year passed since the Voidwalkers issued their challenge. The once empty space above Earth now held Nexus Station, a massive ring that housed 5,000 of humanity's brightest minds. From orbit, it looked like a silver halo surrounding the planet. Dr. Anna Miller hadn't slept properly in months. Dark circles under her eyes had become her most recognizable feature as she moved through the crowded main lab of Nexus. The latest simulation failed again, she told Captain Reed as they walked past rows of engineers working at holographic displays. The energy requirement is still too high. We'd need 10 nuclear plants just to power a wormhole the size of a penny. Reed had changed too. His military posture remained, but worry lines had deepened on his face. 4 years left, he said quietly. We need a breakthrough. 3 Voidwalkers floated silently in their observation bubble on the far side of the lab. Their skin colors shifted between dark purple and deep blue, a pattern Miller had come to recognize as amusement. They're enjoying watching us fail, she muttered. Then let's disappoint them, Reed replied. That afternoon, Reed called an all-hands meeting in the station's main hall. 5,000 scientists and engineers packed the space, exhaustion visible on every face. "I know we're stuck," Reed began without preamble. "The alien theories are advanced, but they're not working for us. So I've made a decision. We're bringing in someone new." Murmurs spread through the crowd. The team had been carefully selected from the best minds on Earth. "His name is Robert Davis," Reed continued. "He's not a physicist or an engineer. He's an inventor from a small town in Ohio. His ideas about matter transportation caught my attention." Miller frowned. "The garage scientist, the one who claims he made a new element." "Reed, we don't have time for thinking differently." Reed raised an eyebrow. "That's exactly what we need." 2 days later, Robert Davis arrived at Nexus Station. He wasn't what anyone expected. Middle-aged with wild gray hair and wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt, he looked completely out of place among the uniformed scientists. "So this is the impossible problem," Davis said, studying the holographic models in the main lab. He walked in circles around the display, scratching his beard. "You're all overthinking it." Miller crossed her arms. "We have the best minds on the planet working on this." "That's the problem," Davis said, tapping the hologram. "You're all trying to build a bridge the way the aliens told you to build it. Has anyone asked why we need to use their method?" From the back of the room, a young physicist named Tom Wilson spoke up. "The aliens provided the theoretical framework. It's thousands of years ahead of our science." Davis shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just their way of doing things." He pulled a small metal cube from his pocket and placed it on the table. "This is my element. I call it Davium." Miller picked up the cube. It felt strangely light, almost as if it might float away from her fingers. "What does it do?" "It doesn't fit into our periodic table," Davis said. "And it seems to exist slightly out of phase with normal matter. I made it by accident when I was trying to create a new battery type." Wilson took the cube next, his eyes widening. "This shouldn't be possible." "That's what people keep telling me," Davis said with a grin. Over the next few weeks, Wilson and Davis became an unlikely team. Wilson with his precise mathematical mind, and Davis with his unconventional approach, worked day and night on a new theory. "The aliens create wormholes by bending space until it punctures," Wilson explained during a progress meeting. But Davis's element suggests another approach. "Instead of bending space, we can slide between the folds that already exist." Reed looked at the complicated equations on the screen. "Can you explain that in simple terms?" Davis stepped forward. "Imagine space as a piece of paper. The aliens fold the paper until it touches itself, then punch a hole through both layers. We're saying we can slit between the layers without folding or punching. Using your mystery element." Miller asked skeptically. "Exactly," Wilson answered. "It exists partly in normal space and partly somewhere else. We think it's naturally attuned to the spaces between realities." 3 months later, they were ready for the first small-scale test. A sealed chamber had been constructed in the most isolated section of Nexus Station. Inside, a ring of Davium surrounded a complex machine that hummed with power. "If this works," Miller said as they monitored from a safe distance, "we should see a microscopic wormhole form between these 2 points." She pointed at 2 spots inside the chamber separated by 3 meters. Reed noticed more voidwalkers had gathered in their observation area. Word of the test must have spread. "Power at 70%. Wilson called out. 80. 90. Full power. The Davium ring began to glow with an inner light. The air between the 2 target points shimmered like a heat mirage. "Something's happening," Davis whispered. A tiny point of darkness appeared, smaller than a grain of sand. As they watched, it expanded to the size of a marble. "It's working," Wilson shouted. The instruments showed a stable connection between the 2 points. Then, without warning, the dark spot pulsed. Alarms blared as energy readings spiked off the charts. "Shut it down," Miller yelled, but it was too late. A flash of light filled the chamber, followed by a shockwave that rocked the entire station. When the emergency systems cleared the smoke, the test machine was a melted ruin. The Davium ring had vanished completely. "Is everyone okay?" Reed asked, helping Wilson up from the floor. "The wormhole collapsed," Wilson said, staring at the destruction. "But it worked, Captain. For 3 seconds, we had a stable wormhole." Later, Reed found Miller in her office, reviewing the test data. 3 seconds isn't going to impress the Voidwalkers," she said without looking up. "But it's proof the concept works," Reed replied. Davis's approach might be the answer. The door slid open, and Nexus, the Voidwalker representative, entered. Its skin pulsed with rapid color changes. "Your test produced unexpected results," it said. "No species has attempted wormhole creation using your method." Reed stood straighter. "Is that a problem?" "It is interesting," Nexus replied. "The other observers have increased their wagers against your success. The odds now stand at 10,000 to 1. After the alien left, Miller turned to Reed. "They still think we'll fail." Reed smiled. "Good. The higher the odds, the bigger our victory will be." "If we win," Miller reminded him. "When we win," Reed corrected. "Get Davis and Wilson. Tell them we're scaling up. I want a wormhole big enough to put my hand through within 6 months." As Reed left the lab, he glanced at the Voidwalker observation area. For the first time, the aliens weren't showing colors of amusement. Instead, they pulsed with a new pattern, one he hadn't seen before. It looked almost like concern. 3 years had passed since the Voidwalkers issued their impossible challenge. 2 years remained. On Nexus Station, the mood had shifted from desperate determination to cautious hope. In the main testing chamber, now rebuilt and expanded, a ring of Davium 10 meters wide dominated the room. The strange element, once just a small cube in Davis's pocket, had been carefully grown in specialized labs throughout Earth. It had cost billions to produce this much, but no price seemed too high with humanity's future at stake. "Today's the day," Tom Wilson said, making final adjustments to the control panel. His once neat appearance had given way to the same disheveled look that Davis had always sported. "If this works, we'll create a wormhole large enough to send a probe through." Captain Reed watched from the observation deck, along with Miller, Davis, and 20 other project leaders. In another section, a larger group of Voidwalkers than usual had gathered to watch. Reed had learned to read some of their color patterns. They were displaying shades that indicated intense interest. "Beginning power-up sequence," Wilson called through the comm system. 20%, 40%. Reed felt his heart pounding. If this test succeeded, they would be on track to complete the challenge with months to spare. 60%, 80%, 100% power. The Davium ring began to glow with the now familiar inner light. In the center of the ring, space itself seemed to ripple, then darken. A perfect circle of absolute blackness formed, growing until it reached 2 meters in diameter. "Wormhole stabilized," Wilson shouted, his voice filled with excitement. "Sending through the probe now." A small drone the size of a basketball moved forward on a mechanical arm, approaching the dark circle. As its front edge touched the blackness, instruments throughout the station began recording massive amounts of data. "The probe is transmitting," Miller said, watching the incoming data stream. It's seeing the receiving chamber on the other side." The drone was halfway through the wormhole when the first alarm sounded. "Energy fluctuation," Wilson reported, his voice suddenly tense. "The field is becoming unstable." Reed leaned forward. "Pull the probe back. Shut it down." "I'm trying," Wilson said, his fingers flying over the controls. "The wormhole is resisting collapse. Power levels are still climbing." The Davium ring's glow intensified from soft blue to blinding white. The wormhole itself began to pulse, expanding and contracting rapidly. "Everyone out," Reed ordered, hitting the station-wide alarm. "Emergency evacuation of all non-essential personnel." Miller turned to him. "Tom can't leave the controls. If that wormhole collapses violently, a high-pitched whine cut through the air, and the observation window suddenly cracked. Reed caught a glimpse of Wilson's panicked face just before a blinding flash filled the chamber. The explosion rocked the entire station, knocking people off their feet. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, containing the blast to the testing section. Sirens wailed as the station's automated systems fought to maintain life support. Hours later, in the emergency command center, Reed received the final casualty report. 7 dead, including Tom Wilson, 15 more seriously injured. The testing chamber was completely destroyed, along with nearly all their davium supplies. What happened? Reed asked Miller, who had been analyzing the data since the accident. She looked up with red-rimmed eyes. The wormhole became self-sustaining. It kept drawing energy from somewhere else, another dimension, maybe. Wilson tried to shut it down, but she trailed off, too exhausted to continue. Davis sat in the corner, staring at nothing. "It's my fault," he said quietly. "My element. My idea." The door to the command center slid open, and Nexus entered. The Voidwalker's skin displayed a pattern Reed had never seen before, ripples of deep gray and black. "You have suffered a significant setback," Nexus stated. "Many of my kind believe this demonstrates the wisdom of our testing protocol. Your species attempts to advance too quickly." Reed stood, facing the alien. "We lost good people today." "Indeed. This is why most species take decades to create stable wormholes. The dangers are substantial." Nexus's colors shifted slightly. "The Galactic Council suggests you accept defeat to prevent further loss of life. Your quarantine would be reduced to 50 years as a gesture of goodwill." Before Reed could respond, a message came through on the main communication screen. It was the United Nations Secretary General. "Captain Reed," she said, her face grave. "In light of today's tragedy, the Security Council has voted to suspend the impossible project pending a full safety review. We cannot justify further loss of life." Reed felt the room spinning around him. "Madam Secretary, we can't quit now. We're making progress." "7 people died today, Captain," she interrupted. "Public opinion has shifted. People are scared. Several governments have already withdrawn their funding and scientific teams." After the call ended, silence filled the command center. Miller finally spoke. "Maybe they're right. Maybe we should stop." Reed walked to the window overlooking Earth. From up here, it looked peaceful, unaware that its future was being decided in this room. "Davis," he said without turning around, "you once told me that failure is just information about what doesn't work. What does this failure tell us?" Davis looked up, a small spark returning to his eyes. "That we were close. Too close. The wormhole became unstable because it was touching something it shouldn't have." Reed turned to face the others. "I want to review all the data from today's test. Every reading, every measurement." "What are you looking for?" Miller asked. "Evidence," Reed said, "because I don't think this was just a scientific miscalculation." Later that night, Reed, Miller, and Davis sat in Reed's private quarters, reviewing the test records frame by frame. "Look," Reed said, pointing to a specific moment in the recording. "Right there, milliseconds before the instability begins." Miller leaned in. That's an energy spike coming from outside the test chamber." "From the Voidwalker observation area," Reed said, his voice hard. "Someone sent a pulse of energy into our experiment." Davis looked stunned. "They sabotaged us." Reed nodded slowly. "The theoretical models they gave us have subtle flaws too. I had a team double-check them against our latest findings. They set us up to fail from the beginning." "But why?" Miller asked. "What's the point of a test no one can pass?" "Control," Reed said. "They quarantine species who might become competitors. They never expected us to get this far." Reed stood up and faced his 2 remaining scientists. "The world governments are backing out. The public is scared. We have 2 years left, almost no davium, and no support." "So it's over," Miller said, deflated. No, Reed answered. Now we do it our way. No more following alien guidelines. No more public tests they can sabotage. We start from scratch, with human science, human ideas. With what resources? Davis asked. Reed smiled grimly. I still have friends, people who believe in us. Tomorrow, I address the world. I'll tell them exactly what happened today and what it means. And what does it mean? Miller asked. Reed's eyes hardened. That the aliens are afraid of us. They called this task impossible because they fear what happens when humans make the impossible real. They lied to us, Reed said, standing before cameras broadcasting to every corner of Earth. His face was grim but determined. The Voidwalkers gave us flawed science. They sabotaged our work. 7 good people died not because of human error, but because the aliens fear what we might achieve. The world listened in shocked silence. For 3 years, humanity had worked together toward a single goal. Now their hero was telling them it had all been rigged from the start. I'm not asking for government funding anymore, Reed continued. I'm asking for something more valuable. Your trust, your belief, your human ingenuity. In the days that followed, Reed's speech became the most viewed recording in history. A movement started, small at first, then growing. People around the world began sending messages of support. Scientists who had been pulled from the project by their governments offered to work in secret. Engineers volunteered their free time. 4 months after the disaster, a new facility took shape in an abandoned mining complex deep beneath the mountains of Norway. Here, away from Voidwalker observation, Reed gathered his new team. Smaller than before, just 50 people, but each chosen not just for brilliance, but for their ability to think differently. We're starting over, Reed told them in their first meeting. Forget everything the aliens taught us. What do humans know about space, time, and dimensions that might be unique to our perspective? Miller, now Reed's second in command, displayed a new theoretical model on the main screen. Davis and I have been working on something. We've abandoned the idea of bending space or slipping between folds. Davis stepped forward. Humans have always pictured wormholes as tunnels or bridges, but what if they're more like doors? Over the next few months, they developed a new approach. Instead of trying to connect 2 points in space, they would create a single point that existed in 2 places simultaneously, a quantum doorway. The aliens see space-time as a fabric to be manipulated, Miller explained during a progress update. We're treating it as information to be rewritten. Progress was slow without government resources, but something unexpected happened. Around the world, ordinary people began contributing in ways Reed hadn't imagined. Computer programmers created a global network that used spare computing power from millions of personal devices to run complex simulations. University students organized to conduct small experiments, sharing results through encrypted channels. It's becoming a global movement, Miller told Reed one night as they reviewed the latest data. People meeting in basements and garages to solve pieces of the puzzle. The Voidwalkers can't track all of it. Reed nodded. Humanity at its best. When we face extinction, we don't surrender. We innovate. 1 year after the disaster, with just months remaining in the challenge, a breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A 16-year-old girl from Kenya sent a mathematical proof that resolved a critical flaw in their quantum doorway theory. She solved it, Davis said, amazed as he reviewed her work. The girl figured out how to stabilize the quantum state using principles from music theory, of all things, harmonic resonance patterns that match the universe's own rhythms. With this key insight, progress accelerated. The team built a small prototype using the last of their davium, combined with more common elements. It doesn't look impressive, Davis admitted as they gathered around a device no bigger than a microwave oven. Inside was a silver ring containing a small amount of davium, surrounded by copper coils and crystal arrays. Will it work? Reed asked. In theory, Miller said, but we can only test it once. We have enough power for a single attempt, and we're using our last Davium. Reed looked at the faces of his team. Exhausted, hopeful, determined. Then we make it count. The test was set for midnight. As the final preparations were made, Reed received an unexpected message. It was from Nexus. "Your species continues to surprise us," the Voidwalker said, its colors shifting rapidly. "Many believed you had abandoned the challenge after your failure." "We don't give up easily," Reed replied. "So we observe. Our monitoring shows unusual patterns of human activity worldwide. Small energy signatures, data transmissions, minor experiments with spatial distortion." Reed kept his face neutral. "People are curious by nature." "Indeed." Nexus paused. "The deadline approaches, Captain Reed. The consequences of failure remain unchanged." After the transmission ended, Reed hurried to the testing chamber. "They know something's happening. We need to move now." The team took their positions. The prototype was connected to power systems jury-rigged from industrial generators. On the other side of the room, a receiving station waited to detect any matter transmitted through the hoped-for doorway. "Power levels rising," Miller reported. 50%, 70%. The Davium began to glow, but differently than before. Instead of the blue-white light they had seen in previous tests, it pulsed with a rainbow of colors that seemed to bend in impossible directions. "Quantum field stabilizing," Davis said, watching the instruments. "The harmonic patterns are holding." 100% power, Miller announced. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, in the center of the ring, a point of darkness appeared. Unlike the previous wormhole, this darkness didn't grow larger. Instead, it remained a pinpoint, but somehow felt deeper than anything they had created before. "Is it working?" Reed asked. Davis held up a small steel ball. "Let's find out." He placed it in a tube connected to the device, then pressed a button that would push the ball toward the dark point. Everyone held their breath as the ball rolled down the tube, touched the point of darkness, and vanished. A second later, alarms blared on the receiving station. "We have matter transfer," Miller shouted, checking the readings. The ball arrived intact. Molecular structure preserved. The team erupted in cheers. Reed moved to clap Davis on the shoulder, but stopped when he saw the inventor's face. "What's wrong?" Reed asked. "It worked." Davis pointed at the instruments. The doorway didn't close. "Isn't that good?" Reed asked. A stable wormhole was the goal. "You don't understand," Miller said, her voice filled with wonder. "It's not just stable. It's permanent. According to these readings, once created, it requires no energy to maintain. It's self-sustaining." "That's impossible," someone in the back of the room said. Reed smiled. "Not anymore." 2 days later, with the prototype carefully transported to a secure facility, Reed sent a message to the Voidwalkers. It was time to demonstrate humanity's achievement. As representatives from the alien delegation arrived, Reed couldn't help but notice their skin colors displaying patterns he had never seen before, rapid shifts between white and deep violet. "Is something wrong?" he asked Nexus as they walked toward the demonstration area. The alien turned its vertical eyes toward him. "We have detected unusual spatial distortions coming from this region. The Council is concerned." Reed smiled. "Good. They should be." The demonstration chamber was crowded with aliens. Not just Voidwalkers, but representatives from 30 different species from across the galaxy. Word had spread about the human attempt to complete the impossible challenge, and many had come to witness what they assumed would be humanity's failure. Reed stood proudly next to the device that didn't look impressive enough to change the course of history. The quantum doorway generator was now housed in a simple metal frame, connected to a standard power supply. On the other side of the room sat a receiving station with monitoring equipment. "Welcome," Reed addressed the gathered aliens. "Today marks the final day of our 5-year challenge. As requested, we will demonstrate a stable wormhole capable of transporting matter between 2 points." Nexus moved forward, its skin rippling with dark blue and purple patterns. You claim success where all evidence suggested failure. The Council requires proof beyond simple matter transfer. A human must pass through the doorway. Murmurs spread through the alien crowd. Such a test was dangerous, even with proven technology. Reed nodded. I'll go through myself. Miller stepped forward. Captain, it's my responsibility, Reed said quietly. Then, louder to the aliens. Before I do, I want to explain what we've created, because it's not what you expected. He activated a holographic display showing the theoretical model developed by his team. The Voidwalkers challenged us to build a wormhole bridge using principles that required bending spacetime. We failed at that approach, partly due to sabotage, partly because humans think differently. Nexus's colors darkened, but it remained silent. Instead, we created something new, Reed continued. We call it a persistent dimensional bridge. Unlike a wormhole, which connects 2 points in space by creating a tunnel, our bridge creates a single point that exists in 2 locations simultaneously. An alien with crystalline features stepped forward. Reed recognized it as a member of a species called the Kori, known for their expertise in dimensional physics. This is theoretically impossible, the Kori said, its voice like chiming bells. Such a connection would require infinite energy to maintain. That's what we thought too, Davis said, joining Reed. But we discovered something about the nature of reality that your people have overlooked. The universe naturally wants to connect to itself. We're not forcing a connection. We are merely opening a door that wants to be opened. Reed pulled up new diagrams. We used harmonic resonance patterns based on music theory to find the natural frequencies of spacetime. Once attuned correctly, the bridge forms on its own and requires no energy to maintain. The aliens exchanged glances, their various communication methods, colors, clicks, movements, all indicating disbelief and concern. Enough theory, Nexus interrupted. Demonstrate your bridge. Reed nodded to Miller, who activated the device. The small amount of davium in the ring began to pulse with rainbow colors. In the center, a point of absolute darkness appeared, not a hole, but a spot where reality simply stopped and something else began. The bridge is stable, Miller confirmed, reading the instruments, ready for human transport. Reed took a deep breath and approached the device. He turned to face the aliens one last time. Whether I return or not, remember this. Humans don't accept impossible challenges. We overcome them. With that, he stepped forward and touched the dark point. There was no sensation of movement, no feeling of passage. One moment he was in front of the assembled aliens. The next he was across the room at the receiving station. The alien delegation erupted in a cacophony of sounds and colors. The Kori's crystalline body vibrated so intensely that small fragments broke off and fell to the floor. Impossible, Nexus said, its colors pulsing rapidly between white and black. The readings showed no energy consumption to maintain the bridge. This violates fundamental laws of dimensional physics. Reed walked back to the main group, not through the bridge but around it, to prove he was physically present. Not impossible, just unknown to you until now. The Voidwalker leader approached Reed, its colors now stable in a pattern he had never seen before, deep gold with streaks of silver. The Council recognizes humanity's completion of the challenge. Your species will be welcomed into the galactic community. But Reed wasn't finished. Before we accept, I have questions. Why give us a task designed to be impossible? Why sabotage our efforts? Why bet against our success? For a long moment, Nexus was silent. Then, its colors shifted to a gentle blue. The test was not designed to be impossible. It was designed to be solved differently. What do you mean? Miller asked. Every species that joins our federation must demonstrate not just intelligence, but innovation, Nexus explained. We provide basic theories with deliberate flaws. Those who merely follow our guidance fail. Those who find their own path succeed. The quarry stepped forward. For 10,000 years, no new species has passed the test. All followed the given path, even when it led to failure. And the sabotage? Reed asked. A final test, Nexus admitted. Those who give up after setbacks are not ready for the challenges of interstellar community. Davis laughed. So this whole thing was a test to see if we think for ourselves. More than that, another alien said, this one with features that reminded Reed of an Earth octopus. Our Federation has reached a plateau. Our science has advanced slowly. Our technologies have remained largely unchanged for millennia. We need fresh perspectives. Reed looked around at the alien delegation, understanding dawning. You need us. The universe is vast and full of mysteries, Nexus said, some that even our combined knowledge cannot solve. Your persistent dimensional bridge is something our scientists declared impossible. Yet here it stands. Miller joined Reed. So what happens now? Now, Nexus said, its colors brightening. Humans join the galactic community not just as new members, but as innovators. Your science will be studied. Your perspectives valued. Your bridge technology will revolutionize interstellar travel. 1 month later, Reed stood on the bridge of the ECS Defiant, looking out at the stars. The ship had been retrofitted with the new bridge technology, making it the first human vessel capable of instant travel to any point in known space. Miller and Davis stood beside him as a larger version of their quantum doorway generator powered up. Where to, Captain? The navigator asked. Reed smiled. The Galactic Council has invited us to establish a human innovation center at their headquarters. Let's not keep them waiting. As the Defiance bridge point activated, creating a doorway across 50 light-years of space, Reed thought about the journey that had brought them here, from impossible challenge to new reality, from isolation to becoming key members of an interstellar civilization. You know, Davis said as if reading his thoughts, we should thank the Voidwalkers. Their impossible challenge pushed us to achieve something greater than we ever would have on our own. That's humanity for you, Reed replied. Tell us something's impossible, and we'll turn it into reality every time. The starfield outside the view screen shifted as the Defiant passed through the permanent bridge, carrying humanity's representatives to their new place among the stars. Not as junior members, but as teachers of what was possible when the impossible was merely a challenge waiting to be overcome.